I did a little analysis of the three most used words over the last, 3 to 4 months here for sure, and they are Bush tax cuts. It's everywhere right now with this debate going on. You talk obviously about the economic crisis and the financial crisis in your book, and it's obviously right now a recognition of members of Congress of both sides that we need to keep your tax policy in place. Does that feel like a vindication?
Well, I wish they'd have called it something other than the Bush tax cuts, and therefore there'd probably be less angst amongst some to pass it. But I do believe it's very important to send the signal to our entrepreneurs and our families that the government trusts them to spend their own money. And I happen to believe lower taxes is what stimulates economic growth, and what we need now in the country is economic growth.
A lot of questions about different decisions, and I want to go through some of these from the listeners. One is wondering, saying, I always admired your self-restraint and not lashing out at those who have continued to pile on the criticism of some of your decisions and policies. I do wonder, however, if you would have been better served if you had at least on occasion defended yourself. I understand the concept of being presidential, and I admire you as a president who held a very high standard for the office of the president, but at some point, don't the gloves have to come off?
Well, they certainly didn't when I was president, because I was disappointed at times by some of the name-calling that took place. On the other hand, I didn't think it was good for the country for me, the president, to engage in the same name-calling. In terms of the post-presidency, there are plenty of defenders of me, but I don't think it's good for the country for me to be out there either defending myself or criticizing my successor.
Another, when speaking with people on the left concerning the importance of fiscal responsibility, it's hard for us as conservatives to defend the lack thereof by a Republican-controlled House, Senate, and White House. Do you have any regret over the amount of money that was spent during your time as president?
Well, the most money that was spent during my time as president was on our military, and I have zero regret of making sure the men and women who have volunteered for our country in the face of danger had the full support of the government, nor do I have any regret making sure those who returned from theaters of combat had the best veterans health care and or pay as possible as well. I would take exception to the listener who said that our fiscal record wasn't sound. I think if you analyze it from an objective basis, you'll find that the ability to cut taxes, grow the economy, and hold down spending other than national defense was a hallmark of my administration, to the point where our debt to GDP ratio was as good as Ronald Reagan's was, and our deficit to GDP ratio, for example, was half of his. I'm a believer in supply-side economics, and I think we proved that supply-side economics can work, albeit in a time of great uncertainty about whether our nation was safe or not.